Emma thought serving tables at an upscale Chicago restaurant would be her fresh start, until the night a notorious Mafia boss decided to make an example of her in front of everyone. But what he didn't know was that the quiet man in the corner booth wasn't just any customer. He was Nathan Cross, a billionaire with his own dark past, and he was about to break every rule to protect her. If you're listening to this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what part of the world you're listening from. The crystal chandeliers of Bellissimo reflected off polished marble floors, casting dancing shadows across white tablecloths that cost more than Emma's weekly rent. She moved between tables with practiced grace, her black uniform pressed crisp despite the steam from the kitchen, her auburn hair pulled back in a neat bun that revealed the fatigue around her green eyes. Chicago's November wind rattled the restaurant's tall windows, carrying the scent of approaching snow mixed with exhaust from Michigan Avenue traffic below. Emma had been working at Bellissimo for 3 months, ever since she'd arrived in Chicago, with nothing but a worn suitcase and a determination to rebuild her life. The tips were good, the kitchen staff kind, and most importantly, nobody asked questions about where she'd come from or why a 26-year-old woman had shown up in the city with no references and a haunted look in her eyes. She balanced 4 plates of osso buco on her arm, navigating between tables filled with business executives celebrating deals and couples leaning close over candlelight. The restaurant hummed with the particular energy of Friday night in downtown Chicago, that electric mix of ambition and indulgence that defined the city after dark. Through the windows, she could see the illuminated storefronts along the magnificent mile, their lights reflecting off the darkening sky like earthbound stars. "Your duck confit, ma'am," Emma said softly, placing the plate before an elegant woman in pearls. "And the lamb for you, sir." The couple barely acknowledged her, already deep in conversation about their upcoming trip to Tuscany. Emma was used to it. In this world of wealth and privilege, servers were meant to be invisible, ghosts who materialized only to fulfill needs and then vanished again. She returned to the kitchen, where the heat hit her like a physical force. Chef Marco was shouting orders in rapid Italian while line cooks moved in choreographed chaos. Emma grabbed her next order, checking the ticket twice. Table 12, the quiet man who'd been sitting alone in the corner booth for the past hour. Nathan Cross was a regular, though Emma hadn't known his name until another server had whispered it with reverence. He came in every Friday, always alone, always ordering the same meal, aged ribeye, medium rare, with a glass of Brunello. He was perhaps 40, with dark hair touched by silver at the temples, wearing suits that moved like liquid shadow when he walked. But it was his eyes that Emma noticed, gray and watchful, the eyes of someone who'd learned to read people the way others read books. "Your steak, Mr. Cross," she said, setting the plate down carefully. He looked up from his phone, and for a moment, their eyes met. "Thank you, Emma." His voice was quiet, controlled, with the faint trace of a Boston accent worn smooth by years away. She was surprised he knew her name. Most regulars never bothered to learn. "Is there anything else I can get you?" "I'm fine, thank you." He paused, studying her face. "How are you settling into Chicago?" The question caught her off guard. It's good. Cold, but good." A slight smile touched his lips. "Winter hasn't even started yet. Wait until January." He picked up his wine glass. "You're from somewhere warmer." It wasn't a question. Emma felt that familiar flutter of anxiety, the fear that someone might dig too deep, might ask the wrong questions. "South Carolina," she said carefully. "Charleston." Nathan nodded, as if confirming something he'd already guessed, but he didn't press further. Instead, he simply said, "Welcome to Chicago," and turned his attention back to his meal. Emma exhaled as she walked away, her heart rate slowly returning to normal. She didn't know why Nathan Cross unnerved her. He'd never been anything but courteous, never lingered over her the way some men did, never made her feel like prey. But there was something in his stillness, in those watchful eyes, that suggested depths she couldn't fathom. The restaurant's front door opened, bringing a gust of cold air and a sudden shift in atmosphere. Emma felt it immediately, the way all the servers did. That particular tension that rippled through the staff when certain people arrived. She glanced toward the entrance and her stomach tightened. Dominic Castellano walked in like he owned the place. In a way, he did. He owned protection from a dozen restaurants along this stretch of Michigan Avenue, including Bellissimo. He was perhaps 50, with silver hair slicked back from a face that might have been handsome, if not for the cruelty around his mouth. His suit was expensive, his shoes Italian leather, his hands adorned with gold rings that caught the chandelier light. Behind him came 4 men in dark coats, their eyes constantly scanning the room with professional vigilance. The maitre d', Antonio, rushed forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Castellano, so good to see you." "Your usual table? Where else would I sit?" Dominic's voice carried across the restaurant, loud and proprietorial. Several diners looked up, then quickly looked away. Antonio led them to a large round table near the center of the dining room, the best spot in the house. Emma watched from the service station, hoping she wouldn't be assigned to them. She'd served Castellano once before, and the experience had left her shaken. The way he'd looked at her, the casual brush of his hand against hers when taking his credit card, the tip that was generous enough to feel like payment for something other than service. "Emma," Antonio appeared beside her, his expression apologetic. "Table 9. I'm sorry." Her heart sank. "Can't Maria take it?" "Maria's handling the Johnstons. Besides, he asked for you specifically." Of course he had. Emma straightened her shoulders, smoothed her apron, and picked up 5 menus. As she approached table 9, she kept her expression neutral, professional, the mask she'd learned to wear back in Charleston when hiding emotions meant survival. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Bellissimo." She distributed the menus without making eye contact. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Well, well." Dominic leaned back in his chair, looking her up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. "If it isn't my favorite waitress." "What's your name again, sweetheart?" "Emma, sir." "Emma." He rolled her name around his mouth like he was tasting it. "Pretty name for a pretty girl." "You know what I want, Emma. I want a bottle of your most expensive champagne. We're celebrating tonight." One of his companions laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "What are we celebrating, Dom?" "Life, Frankie. We're celebrating life." Dominic's eyes never left Emma's face. "And beautiful women who know their place." Emma's fingers tightened on her order pad. "I'll get that champagne for you right away." She turned to leave, but Dominic's voice stopped her. "Hey, Emma, make sure you pour it yourself. I like watching you reach across the table." The men laughed, and Emma felt heat rise to her face. Not from embarrassment, but from anger she couldn't afford to show. She walked away with measured steps, refusing to hurry, refusing to let them see how their words affected her. In the kitchen, she leaned against the stainless steel prep counter, breathing slowly. Chef Marco glanced over, his weathered face concerned. "You okay, Piccola?" "I'm fine." She wasn't, but saying it out loud wouldn't help. She retrieved the champagne, a bottle that cost $800, and returned to table 9 with a silver bucket and 5 flutes. As she approached, she noticed Nathan Cross watching from his corner booth, his expression unreadable. Emma began the ritual of opening the champagne, her hands steady despite her nerves. She eased the cork out with a soft pop, poured a small amount into Dominic's glass for approval. He made a show of swirling it, sniffing it, tasting it with exaggerated care. "Not bad," he pronounced, as if he knew anything about wine. "Pour for my friends." Emma moved around the table, filling each glass. As she reached for the last one, Dominic suddenly shifted, and her hand bumped his shoulder. Champagne splashed onto the white tablecloth, a spreading stain that seemed impossibly large. "You clumsy bitch," Dominic roared, jumping to his feet. "Look what you did." Emma's blood turned to ice. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Castellano. Let you what? Ruin my $800 suit too?" He grabbed her wrist, his grip painful. "You think I come to a place like this to be treated like garbage?" The restaurant had gone silent. Every eye was on them. Emma tried to pull her hand free, but his grip tightened. "It was an accident. Please let me get you a towel." "An accident? You did this on purpose. You think I don't see how you look at me? Like you're better than me?" His face was inches from hers now, his breath hot with wine. "You're nothing. You're a waitress in a restaurant I could buy with my pocket change. You're going to learn some respect." Emma's vision began to narrow, old memories surging up. Another man, another room, another time when she'd been powerless and afraid. Her voice came out small, defeated. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And then Nathan Cross was there. He moved so quietly that Emma didn't see him approach. One moment Dominic was gripping her wrist, the next Nathan's hand was on Dominic's shoulder, his voice soft but carrying to every corner of the restaurant. "Let her go." Dominic Castellano turned slowly, his face flushed with rage, but the expression faltered when he saw who had interrupted him. Nathan Cross stood less than a foot away, his tailored suit immaculate, his gray eyes cold as Chicago steel in winter. The temperature in the restaurant seemed to drop 10 degrees. "This doesn't concern you," Dominic said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "I'm making it my concern." Nathan's hand remained on Dominic's shoulder, not gripping, just resting there with casual weight. "You're going to release this young woman. You're going to apologize, and then you're going to leave." Dominic's men shifted in their seats, hands moving toward inside jacket pockets. The air crackled with potential violence. Emma stood frozen, her wrist still caught in Dominic's grip, caught between two forces she didn't understand. "Do you know who I am?" Dominic's voice rose, but there was uncertainty beneath the bluster. "Dominic Castellano. You run protection rackets from Streeterville to River North. You launder money through 3 restaurants, 2 dry cleaners, and a car wash in Cicero. Your boss is Carlo Benedetti, who's currently under federal investigation for racketeering." Nathan's voice remained conversational, as if discussing the weather. "Your daughter Sophia is a junior at Northwestern studying pre-law. She has a golden retriever named Bruno. She walks him every morning at 7:30 in Lincoln Park." The color drained from Dominic's face. The mention of his daughter was a line crossed, a reminder of vulnerabilities he thought were hidden. His grip on Emma's wrist loosened, and she pulled free, stumbling backward. "You threatening my family?" Dominic's voice shook with fury and fear. "I'm telling you I know everything worth knowing." Nathan's expression didn't change. "The FBI knows most of it too. They've had surveillance on your operations for 16 months. They're building a RICO case. The only reason you're not in custody is that you're small enough not to matter yet." He paused. "But you could matter. You could become interesting to them. All it would take is one phone call." Emma watched this exchange with growing confusion. Who was Nathan Cross? How did he know these things? And why was he risking himself for her? Dominic glanced at his men, then back at Nathan. The calculation was visible on his face. Pride versus pragmatism, rage versus survival instinct. "This isn't over," he finally said, but it was a retreat disguised as a threat. "Yes, it is." Nathan removed his hand from Dominic's shoulder. "You're going to leave $1,000 on the table for the staff. You're going to walk out of here quietly. And you're never going to come back to this restaurant. You're never going to speak to Emma again. If I hear that you've even looked in her direction, that phone call I mentioned gets made. Are we clear?" The silence stretched for 10 seconds. 20. The entire restaurant held its breath. Then Dominic reached into his jacket. His men tensed, Nathan didn't move, and pulled out a money clip. He counted out 10 $100 bills, slapped them on the champagne-stained tablecloth, and walked toward the door without another word. His men followed, shooting dangerous looks over their shoulders. As the door closed behind them, the restaurant erupted in whispered conversation. Antonio rushed over, his face pale. "Mr. Cross, I don't know how to thank you. That was incredibly brave, but also incredibly dangerous. It was necessary." Nathan turned to Emma, and his expression softened slightly. "Are you all right?" Emma realized she was shaking, adrenaline flooding her system now that the immediate threat had passed. Yes, thank you. I don't understand what just happened, but thank you. Let's sit down." Nathan guided her gently to his booth, sliding in across from her. Antonio hovered nearby, uncertain. "Bring her some water," Nathan said, "and perhaps something stronger if she wants it." Emma sank into the leather seat, her mind racing. She studied Nathan's face, searching for clues to who he really was. "You're not just a businessman, are you?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'm many things, but right now, I'm someone who couldn't stand by and watch a bully intimidate a woman who's done nothing to deserve it." Antonio returned with water and a glass of brandy. Emma reached for the water with trembling hands, took a long drink. The restaurant was slowly returning to normal, diners returning to their meals, though she could feel their curious glances. "How did you know all those things about him?" Emma asked. "About his daughter, about the FBI investigation?" "Information is currency in my world." Nathan took a sip of his wine. "I make it my business to know things, especially about men like Dominic Castellano." "What is your business exactly?" "I buy struggling companies and turn them profitable. Hotels, restaurants, manufacturing plants. I employ about 15,000 people across 12 states. He paused. "But before that, I was something different. Someone who knew people like Castellano very well." Emma heard the weight in those words, the history he wasn't sharing. "Were you a criminal?" "No, but I grew up in a world where crime was part of the landscape. South Boston, in the 80s and 90s. My father worked the docks. My uncles ran with Whitey Bulger's crew. His fingers traced patterns on the table. I saw what that life was, where it led. I chose a different path. But you know how to talk to them, how to threaten them. Yes, he met her eyes. Because I understand them. Their pride, their fears, their pressure points. Dominic Castellano is a middle management thug, trying to play above his weight. Men like that are dangerous to people they can intimidate, but they fold when they meet someone who genuinely frightens them. And you frighten them. When I need to. He leaned back. The question is, why does Dominic Castellano have such interest in you? You said this wasn't your first encounter with him. Emma felt her defenses rising. I've served him before. Some men are like that with waitresses. Some men are. But his reaction tonight wasn't just about power or lust. It was personal. He knew your name without being told. He asked for you specifically. Nathan's gray eyes were sharp, analytical. He's been watching you. Why? I don't know. But she did know. Or at least she suspected. Dominic reminded her too much of Travis, her ex-boyfriend back in Charleston. The same entitled rage, the same need to control and dominate. She'd left Charleston to escape Travis, changed her name, paid cash for everything to avoid a paper trail. But somehow, she'd caught the attention of another predator. Emma, Nathan's voice was gentle, but firm. I can't help you if you don't tell me the truth. Are you running from something? She wanted to lie, to maintain the carefully constructed fiction of her life. But this man had just put himself at risk for her, had stared down a mobster without flinching. She owed him honesty, or at least part of it. I left South Carolina because I needed to start over. There was a man. He hurt me. Not physically, but in other ways. He controlled everything. Where I went, who I saw, what I wore. When I finally left, he promised he'd find me. She wrapped her hands around the water glass, needing something to hold on to. I thought Chicago would be big enough to disappear in. Nathan was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried a note of understanding that surprised her. My sister was in a relationship like that. When she finally got free, the man stalked her for 2 years, showed up at her work, her home, her friends' houses. The police couldn't do anything until he actually hurt her. His jaw tightened. So I made him go away. What did you do? I bought the company where he worked and fired him. I bought the building where he rented and evicted him. I made sure every employer in Boston knew exactly what kind of man he was. Nathan's expression was hard. I used money as a weapon, and it was devastatingly effective. He moved to California within 6 months. Emma felt something uncurl in her chest. A tension she'd been carrying for so long she'd forgotten it was there. You used your power to protect her. Yes, power isn't inherently good or evil. It's how you use it that matters. He studied her face. Is the man from Charleston dangerous enough that he'd follow you here? Maybe. Probably not. He made a lot of threats, but Travis is mostly talk. She hoped that was true. I've been careful. I don't use social media. I paid cash for my apartment. I don't have a car registered in my name. Smart precautions. But Dominic's attention is a new problem. Nathan pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. I'm going to have someone check into whether there's a connection between Travis and Dominic. It's unlikely, but worth verifying. You don't have to do this. I'm not your responsibility. No, you're not. He looked up from his phone. But earlier tonight, when I saw Dominic grab you, I saw my sister's face. I saw every woman who's ever been made to feel small and powerless by a man who thinks strength means domination. His voice was quiet, intense. I have resources. I have knowledge. If I don't use them to help when I can, what's the point of having them? Emma felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. She'd been alone for so long, facing everything by herself, that this offer of help felt almost overwhelming. Why were you here tonight? You come every Friday, always alone. What are you looking for? The question seemed to surprise him. He was silent for a moment, then said, normalcy. I spend my weeks in boardrooms and conference calls, making decisions that affect thousands of lives. Friday night at Bellissimo is when I get to be just a man eating dinner, watching people live their lives. He smiled slightly. Plus, Marco makes the best ribeye in Chicago. You're not just a man eating dinner. You're Nathan Cross, billionaire businessman with a mysterious past. Mysterious? I prefer selectively disclosed. The humor in his voice was gentle. But yes, I suppose I'm not very good at being invisible. Antonio appeared again, wringing his hands. Mr. Cross, Emma, I've spoken with the owner. He wants to close the restaurant early tonight. Given what happened, everyone's too shaken to continue service normally. Nathan nodded. Understandable. I'll settle my bill. No charge, sir. And the owner wants to thank you personally. He'll call you tomorrow. As Nathan stood, Emma realized she wasn't ready for this strange, intense evening to end. Mr. Cross. Nathan. Please. Nathan. I want to thank you properly. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? I know that sounds ridiculous given the circumstances, but... He studied her for a moment, and she saw something shift in his expression. A wall lowering. A guard dropping. There's a place on Wabash, 3 blocks from here. The Midnight Roaster. They make terrible coffee but excellent hot chocolate. Meet me there in 20 minutes? Emma smiled. The first genuine smile she'd felt all night. I'll be there. The Midnight Roaster was exactly as Nathan had described. A narrow storefront wedged between a closed jewelry shop and a 24-hour convenience store. Its windows fogged with steam, and its interior lit by warm amber bulbs. Emma arrived to find Nathan already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of steaming hot chocolate and a plate of biscotti. You weren't kidding about the hot chocolate, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. The first sip was rich and dark, with hints of cinnamon and vanilla. Sometimes the unexpected places have the best offerings. Nathan had changed out of his suit jacket into a simple black sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. Outside, snow had begun to fall, tiny flakes swirling past the window like confetti. The cafe was nearly empty, just an elderly man reading a newspaper in the front, and a young couple sharing a pastry by the door. Emma felt the tension of the evening slowly draining away, replaced by a strange sense of possibility. She'd spent 3 months in Chicago keeping everyone at arm's length, building walls to protect herself, and now here she was, having hot chocolate with a billionaire who'd defended her honor like something out of a storybook. Tell me about Charleston, Nathan said. Before everything went wrong, what was it like? Emma wrapped her hands around the warm cup, organizing her thoughts. Beautiful, old, full of history and ghosts and humidity that wrapped around you like a blanket. I grew up on James Island, worked at my aunt's bookstore on King Street. I wanted to be a librarian. She smiled at the memory. Such simple dreams. Nothing wrong with simple dreams. Some of the happiest people I know are librarians. Do you know many librarians? I fund 3 public libraries in underserved neighborhoods in Boston. I make it my business to know the people who run them. He took a sip of his hot chocolate. Dreams deferred aren't dreams destroyed. You could still become a librarian. Maybe. If I ever feel safe enough to stay in one place. Use my real name. Build a life instead of just surviving. She heard the bitterness in her own voice. Sorry, I'm not usually this maudlin. You're entitled. You had a traumatic evening. Nathan leaned forward slightly. Emma, I want to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before answering. Do you want to keep running, or do you want to stand still and fight? The question surprised her. What do you mean? I mean that right now. You're in reactive mode. You left Charleston, came to Chicago. You're working under the table, living off the grid. You're surviving, like you said, but surviving isn't living. His gray eyes were intense. With my help, you could do more than survive. You could reclaim your life, use your real name, get a legal job, pursue that librarian dream. And if Travis or anyone else tries to hurt you, we deal with them. Legally, financially, whatever it takes. Emma's heart raced. You're offering to, what? Be my protector? I'm offering to be someone in your corner. I have lawyers, investigators, resources. I can make sure you're safe while you rebuild. He paused. I'm not asking for anything in return. This isn't a transaction. It's an offer of help, freely given, with no strings attached. Why? You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're brave. It takes courage to leave an abusive relationship and start over in a new city. I know you're proud. You could have asked for help, but you chose to make it on your own. I know you're kind. I've watched how you treat the kitchen staff at Bellissimo, with respect and warmth. He smiled slightly. And I know you make terrible tips because you refuse to flirt with the wealthy men who could afford to be generous. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. You've been watching me, observing. There's a difference. I observe everyone. It's a habit from my childhood. You learn to read people when survival depends on knowing who's dangerous and who's safe. She studied his face, searching for hidden motives, for the catch she knew must exist. Men didn't offer help without wanting something in return. But Nathan's expression was open, honest, and she found herself wanting to trust him despite every lesson she'd learned. If I said yes, what would that look like? Practically speaking, first, we make sure you're legally employed. I own a hospitality company that manages hotel restaurants. I can get you a position with proper documentation, benefits, a real paycheck. Second, we find you an apartment in a secure building. Third, my investigators run a comprehensive check on Travis, make sure he's not a threat. If he is, we get a restraining order and make sure he knows it will be enforced. Nathan ticked off points on his fingers. Fourth, if you're serious about library science, I can help with tuition at one of Chicago's universities. You'd pay it back eventually if you want. Consider it an interest-free loan. It sounded too good to be true. Emma's instincts screamed caution, but another part of her, the part that was exhausted from constant vigilance, tired of being afraid, wanted desperately to say yes. I need to think about it. Of course. Take all the time you need. Nathan pulled a business card from his wallet, wrote something on the back. My personal cell phone. Call me when you've decided, or if you need anything before then. Even if you decide you don't want my help, keep the number. Chicago can be a difficult city for someone alone. Emma took the card, her fingers brushing his. For a moment, they sat in silence, the cafe warm around them, the snow falling steadily outside. She felt the strangest sensation, as if the trajectory of her entire life was balanced on this moment, on this decision. Nathan, earlier you said you were something different before you became a businessman. What were you? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, I was an FBI agent, Organized Crime Division. I spent 8 years infiltrating criminal organizations, building cases, taking down people like Dominic Castellano, but bigger, more dangerous. His voice was neutral, but she heard the weight beneath it. I saw things I wish I could forget. I did things I'm not proud of. When my father died, I inherited his pension and life insurance. I used it to buy my first company, got out of the bureau and never looked back. But you kept the skills, the knowledge, the connections. You can't unlearn what you've learned. And honestly, I don't want to. Those skills have let me protect people who matter. My sister, my employees. Tonight, you. He met her eyes. Power comes from many sources. Money, knowledge, connections, legitimacy. I've spent the last 12 years accumulating all of them. It would be a shame not to use them for good. Emma thought about power, about how it had been used against her, and how it was being offered to her now. Travis had used power to control and diminish. Nathan was offering to use power to liberate and protect. The difference was everything. I want to say yes, she said quietly, but I'm afraid. Fear is reasonable. Trust is a risk. But Emma, ask yourself this. What's the worst that could happen if you accept my help? Worst case, I turn out to be a creep or have ulterior motives, and you're in the same position you are now, alone and running. You've survived that before. You could survive it again. He leaned back. But what's the worst that happens if you don't accept? You keep running. You keep living in fear. You never get to be yourself. Never pursue your dreams. Never plant roots. Is that survival worth it? She knew the answer. She'd known it for months. Maybe since the night she'd packed a single bag and driven away from Charleston at 3 a.m. This half-life wasn't enough. She deserved more. Okay, she said. Yes, I want your help. Nathan smiled, and it transformed his face, erasing years of hardness. Good. We'll start Monday. I'll have my assistant reach out to set up meetings with HR and with the apartment finder I use for executive relocations. He raised his hot chocolate cup. To new beginnings. Emma clinked her cup against his, feeling something like hope unfurling in her chest. To new beginnings. They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting to easier topics. Chicago versus Boston, books they'd loved, the peculiar beauty of cities in winter. Emma learned that Nathan had a dry sense of humor, that he'd read extensively in philosophy and history, that he volunteered at a youth center in Englewood, teaching financial literacy to teenagers. He learned that she loved mystery novels, that she could identify most birds by their calls, that she'd once harbored dreams of hiking the Appalachian Trail. When they finally left the cafe, the snow had blanketed Chicago in pristine white. The streets were quiet, traffic sparse, the city muffled and peaceful. Nathan insisted on putting Emma in a cab, paying the driver in advance to take her home to her studio apartment in Pilsen. As the cab pulled away, Emma looked back to see Nathan standing on the corner, his hands in his pockets, watching until she was out of sight. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, protected, and more than that, seen. Not as a waitress or a victim or someone to be controlled, but as a person worth defending, worth investing in, worth knowing. She didn't realize until later, lying in her narrow bed with sirens wailing somewhere in the distance, that Nathan Cross had never asked for her real name, had never pushed for details about Travis, had never made her feel like she owed him anything. He'd simply offered help and left the door open for her to walk through it. For the first time in months, Emma slept without nightmares. But 3 blocks away, in the back office of a social club on Taylor Street, Dominic Castellano was making phone calls. His pride was wounded, his authority questioned, and he wasn't the type of man to let that stand. He'd been humiliated in front of his crew, threatened in front of civilians, and forced to retreat like a coward. The humiliation burned in his gut like acid. Nathan Cross thought he was untouchable, thought his money and his knowledge made him invincible. But Dominic knew something Nathan didn't. Everyone was vulnerable somewhere. Everyone had a pressure point. Everyone had something they cared about enough to break for. And if Nathan Cross cared about that waitress, Emma, with her pretty face and her frightened eyes, then that was leverage. That was opportunity. Dominic smiled as he dialed another number. By morning, he'd have everything he needed to know about Nathan Cross and Emma, whatever her name was, and then he'd decide how to make them both pay for making him look weak. In the world Dominic inhabited, respect was currency, and he'd just been bankrupted in front of witnesses. That debt would be paid, one way or another. The snow kept falling, beautiful and pitiless, covering the city in white. Somewhere above, a window shattered, a sound like breaking crystal, and then all was silence. Monday morning arrived cold and bright, Chicago glittering under fresh snow like a postcard of itself. Emma stood in the lobby of the Apex Tower on Wacker Drive, craning her neck to look up at the soaring atrium with its glass ceiling and marble columns. This was Nathan's world. Power and polish and money so vast it became invisible, woven into the architecture itself. His assistant, Yuki, met her in the lobby, a composed woman in her 30s, with perfect posture and an efficient smile. Ms. Emma, Mr. Cross is in meetings all morning, but he wanted me to personally handle your orientation. We'll start with HR on the 32nd floor. The next 3 hours were a blur of paperwork and information. Emma signed employment contracts for Cross Hospitality Group, filled out tax forms using her real name for the first time in months. Emma rose Hartley and listened to explanations of benefits that seemed impossibly generous: health insurance, dental, vision, retirement matching, tuition reimbursement. Yuki explained that Emma would start as a shift supervisor at the Meridian Hotel restaurant downtown, a position that paid nearly double what she'd been making under the table at Bellissimo. Mr. Cross likes to promote from within, Yuki said, handing Emma an employee handbook. If you prove yourself, there are opportunities for advancement. Several of our general managers started in restaurant positions. By noon, Emma was installed in a temporary corporate apartment in a building Nathan owned in the South Loop, a furnished 1-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Grant Park. It was more space than she'd had in years, with a real kitchen and a bathroom that sparkled. She stood at the window, watching tiny figures ice skating on the rink below, and wondered if she'd somehow fallen into a fairy tale. Her phone buzzed. Nathan, how was orientation? Yuki said you survived the HR onslaught. Emma smiled, typing back. Survived and employed. Thank you doesn't seem adequate. No thanks necessary. Dinner this week? I'd like to introduce you to my sister Kara. She runs a nonprofit helping women leave abusive situations. I think you'd like her. I'd like that. For 3 days, Emma existed in a state of cautious optimism. She started her new job at the Meridian, where the staff welcomed her, and the work was demanding but manageable. She bought groceries with her advance paycheck, filled her apartment with small comforts, books, plants, a rug in deep blue. She walked through Chicago with her head up, no longer constantly checking over her shoulder. But on Thursday afternoon, the fairy tale shattered. Emma was leaving the Meridian after her shift, pulling her coat tight against the bitter wind tunneling between buildings, when a black SUV pulled up to the curb. The back door opened, and a voice called out, Emma, get in the car. She knew that voice. Turned to see Travis Henderson sitting in the back seat, his handsome face split by a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Her blood turned to ice. How did you... Find you? Please. You think you can hide from me? Travis gestured impatiently. Get in. We need to talk. I'm not getting in that car. Emma took a step backward, her hand reaching for her phone. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'm going to make a scene. I'm going to tell everyone here that you stole from me, that you're a junkie who ran out on debts. His voice was pleasant, conversational. I'll destroy this new life you're building before it even starts. Or you can get in the car, we'll talk, and maybe we can work this out like adults. Emma's mind raced. The street was busy with pedestrians, but none were paying attention to a man in a nice car talking to a woman. If Travis started shouting accusations, if he made a scene, it would reach her employers, would taint everything Nathan had helped her build. She'd seen Travis destroy reputations before, had watched him methodically dismantle the life of a friend who'd tried to help her leave him. She got in the car. The door closed behind her with a heavy thunk, and Travis knocked on the privacy screen. The driver pulled into traffic. Emma pressed herself against the far door, as much distance between them as possible. There's my girl. Travis reached out to touch her face, and she flinched away. He laughed, still skittish. I thought 6 months would have mellowed you out, but I see you're still the same frightened little mouse. What do you want, Travis? What do I want? I want my girlfriend back. The one who promised to love me forever, then vanished in the middle of the night like a thief. His expression hardened. Do you know what you put me through? The embarrassment? My friends asking where you went? My mother upset that you didn't even say goodbye? Your mother hated me. Emma found her voice, though it shook. Everyone in your life hated me because you told them to. You isolated me, controlled me, made me afraid to exist without your permission. I protected you. I gave you everything. A place to live, money to spend, a purpose, and you threw it away. He leaned closer. But I'm willing to forgive you, Emma. Come back to Charleston. We'll start over. I've even been seeing a therapist like you always wanted. It was a lie. Everything Travis said was a carefully constructed fiction designed to manipulate and control. Emma had learned to hear the falsehood beneath his words, had developed an instinct for his particular brand of deception. I'm not coming back. I have a life here. A job, an apartment, friends. She thought of Nathan, wondered if he was a friend, or something she didn't have a name for yet. I'm done being afraid. Travis's expression went flat, all pretense of warmth vanishing. You think you're done? You think you get to decide when we're finished? He pulled out his phone, swiped through photos. I've been watching you, Emma. I know about your new job at the Meridian. I know about your apartment in the South Loop. I know about Nathan Cross. Her stomach dropped. Leave him out of this. Oh, he's very much in this. Do you know what I think? I think Nathan Cross is using you. Rich men don't help waitresses out of the kindness of their hearts. They do it because they want something. Travis's smile was cruel. How long until he expects payment? How long until he shows you what he really is? Nathan isn't like you. Every man is like me, sweetheart. Some are just better at hiding it. He put his phone away. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to quit your job. You're going to give up that apartment. And you're going to come back to Charleston where you belong. If you don't, I'm going to make sure Nathan Cross regrets ever meeting you. How? What can you possibly do to him? Travis leaned back, supremely confident. I've made friends in Chicago. Powerful friends. Turns out, the friend of a friend knows Dominic Castellano. Heard an interesting story about some trouble at a restaurant last week. Seems Nathan made an enemy. He watched her face, feeding on her fear. Funny how things connect, isn't it? You came to Chicago to hide. Instead, you've put your new hero right in the crosshairs. Emma felt sick. She'd brought this danger. Her presence had drawn Travis here, had given him leverage against Nathan. Everything she'd feared was coming true. She was poison, contaminating everyone she touched. I want out of this car. Now. Sure. Think about what I said. You have 48 hours to decide. Come back to Charleston willingly, or I make both your lives hell. Travis knocked on the privacy screen, and the SUV pulled over on Michigan Avenue. 48 hours, Emma. Clock's ticking. She scrambled out of the car, gulping cold air like a drowning person breaking surface. The SUV pulled away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk while crowds flowed around her. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, dialed Nathan. He answered on the second ring. Emma, is everything okay? No, nothing's okay. Can you meet me, please? Where are you? Michigan and Randolph, by Millennium Park. Stay there. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He arrived in 8, his BMW pulling up with the efficient speed of someone used to navigating Chicago traffic. Emma slid into the passenger seat, and Nathan took one look at her face and drove without speaking, heading west until they reached a quiet residential street in Ukrainian village. He parked, turned to her. "Tell me what happened." Emma told him everything. Travis's arrival, his threats, his knowledge of her life and connection to Dominic Castellano. As she spoke, Nathan's expression grew darker, his jaw tightening. When she finished, silence filled the car. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I've brought danger to you. I should disappear again, go somewhere he can't follow." "No," Nathan's voice was hard. "You're not running. Not from him. Not from this. But Travis said things designed to frighten you, to make you feel powerless. That's what abusers do." Nathan turned to face her fully. "Emma, listen to me. Travis is a coward who preys on people he perceives as weak. He found you by hiring a private investigator, probably monitoring your credit cards or social security number. He's using Dominic Castellano's name to scare you, but I doubt he actually has any real connection. It's smoke and mirrors. But what if he does? What if he can hurt you? Then I'll handle it. I've dealt with worse than Travis Henderson." Nathan reached out, took her hand. "You are not poison. You are not responsible for the actions of a man who refuses to let you go. Do you understand me?" Emma wanted to believe him, but the old voices were too loud. Travis's voice, her mother's voice, the voice of every person who'd ever told her she was difficult, dramatic, the problem. "I don't know how to stop being afraid. By standing still, by refusing to run, by trusting that you're not alone anymore." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "Tomorrow, we're going to my lawyers. We're filing for a restraining order. We're documenting every threat Travis made. We're going to use the system that exists to protect people from stalkers and abusers. Restraining orders don't stop men like Travis. No, but they create a paper trail. And if he violates it, there are consequences. Police involvement, jail time. Men like Travis are emboldened by the belief that they can act without repercussions. We're going to prove him wrong." Emma felt tears spilling down her cheeks, hot against her cold skin. Nathan reached over, wiped them away with his thumb, the gesture so gentle it broke something inside her. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Outside, snow had begun falling again, soft flakes drifting past streetlights. Finally, he said, "Because I've spent most of my life learning that power is meaningless if you don't use it to protect people who need protecting. Because my sister almost died. Because I wasn't paying attention, wasn't there when she needed me. Because..." He stopped, started again. "Because when I look at you, I see someone brave and kind and deserving of a life without fear. And I have the resources to help make that possible. It's really that simple." But it wasn't simple, Emma realized. There was something more in his voice, in the way he looked at her. Something neither of them was ready to name. "Nathan, I need to tell you something. My real story. All of it. You don't have to." "I do. If we're going to fight this together, you deserve the truth." She took a shaky breath. "I met Travis 3 years ago. I was working at my aunt's bookstore, and he came in looking for a gift. He was charming, successful, attentive. For the first 6 months, it was perfect. Then little things started changing. He'd get upset if I wore certain clothes. He wanted to know where I was every minute. He isolated me from my friends, convinced me my family was toxic." The words came faster now, years of silence breaking like a dam. "After a year, I was completely dependent on him. I'd quit my job because he said I didn't need to work. I lived in his house. I had no money of my own. And when I tried to leave the first time, he found me at my friend Melissa's place. He was so apologetic, so convincing. Said he'd change. I believed him." Nathan listened without interrupting, his hand still holding hers. "The second time I tried to leave, he showed up at my mother's house, made such a scene that my mother, who'd never liked him, told me I must have done something to provoke him, that I needed to try harder to make the relationship work." Emma's voice cracked. "So I went back, and I stayed for another 8 months, dying a little more each day. Until one night, he told me he was thinking about proposing, about starting a family, and I realized that if I didn't leave right then, I never would, that I'd end up trapped forever." "So you ran." "I ran. I took what money I could pull from an ATM, packed one bag and drove. I sold my car in Atlanta, paid cash for a bus ticket to Chicago, changed my name from Emma Rose Hartley to just Emma Rose. Got a fake ID from someone Melissa knew. Started over. She looked at Nathan. That's who you're defending. A woman living under a false identity, working illegally, running from her past. That's not who you are. That's what you had to do to survive. Nathan's voice was fierce. Emma, nothing you've told me changes anything. If anything, it makes me more determined to help. Because you've already proven you have the strength to save yourself. All I'm doing is making sure you don't have to fight alone this time. She believed him. Against all logic, all experience, all the lessons learned in pain, she believed Nathan Cross, and that belief was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. What do we do now? Now, I take you home. Tomorrow, we start building a case, and we wait to see what Travis does next. Nathan started the car. Emma, I need you to promise me something. If Travis contacts you again, you don't engage. You don't respond. You call me immediately. Can you do that? Yes. As they drove through snowy streets back toward her apartment, Emma felt the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. She'd been found. The past had caught up. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, she had someone in her corner who understood power and how to wield it. She just hoped it would be enough, because Travis Henderson didn't lose. And if he couldn't have her, he'd make sure no one could. The night swallowed them as they drove, the city lights reflecting off fresh snow, beautiful and cold. Somewhere behind them, Travis was planning his next move. Somewhere in the city, Dominic Castellano was nursing wounded pride and sharpening knives. The storm was coming. Emma could feel it in her bones, in the way the air tasted electric and sharp. All she could do was stand still, trust Nathan's promises, and hope that this time, the good guys won. But in her heart, she knew better. Life wasn't a fairy tale, and men like Travis and Dominic didn't play by rules. The law offices of Brennan, Torres & Associates occupied the 45th floor of a building on LaSalle Street, with views that stretched across the Chicago River to the lake beyond. Emma sat in a leather chair so comfortable it felt like surrender, watching Nathan's attorney, Margaret Brennan, review the documented evidence of Travis's harassment. "This is solid," Margaret said, her reading glasses perched on her nose. The texts, the recorded conversation from the car, the witness statements from Charleston. We can absolutely get a restraining order. The question is, will it be enough? What do you mean? Emma asked, though she suspected she knew. Restraining orders are legal documents, not force fields. They work with people who respect the law. With someone like Travis Henderson, Margaret gestured at the psychological profile her investigator had compiled, who's demonstrated a pattern of obsessive control and has financial resources to skirt consequences. It's a tool, but not a solution. Nathan leaned forward in his chair. Then what do you recommend? Multi-pronged approach. First, we get the restraining order, make it ironclad. Any contact, any approach within 500 feet, we prosecute immediately. Second, Emma files a civil suit for emotional distress, harassment, and whatever else we can make stick. Make it expensive and public for him to continue this behavior. Margaret looked at Emma. Third, and this is important, we control the narrative. Right now, Travis thinks he has power because he knows your secrets. We take that power away by getting ahead of it. You file a public statement about leaving an abusive relationship. You own your story before he can weaponize it. Emma's stomach clenched. Go public? Not media circus public, but formal documentation that becomes part of the legal record. It protects you, and it warns Travis that you're not hiding anymore. Margaret's expression softened. I know it's scary, but silence is what abusers count on. Nathan reached over, his hand finding Emma's. The touch was becoming familiar now, grounding. You don't have to decide this instant. Think about it. But Emma knew the answer already. She'd been silent for 3 years, letting Travis's version of events become the only version. Let's do it. All of it. I'm done being afraid. Margaret smiled. Good. We'll file the paperwork this afternoon. In the meantime, I recommend you vary your routine. Stay aware of your surroundings and keep your phone charged. Travis has proven he's willing to make contact. We need to document every instance. As they left the law office, Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. I need to take this. Give me 2 minutes? Emma nodded, watching as he walked a few paces away, his voice low and intense. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his free hand clenched and unclenched. When he returned, his face was carefully neutral. Problem? Dominic Castellano is telling people I threatened his family. He's trying to paint me as unstable, dangerous. It's a PR move, but it could complicate things. Nathan guided her toward the elevator. My board is concerned. They're suggesting I take a step back from active management while this blows over. Because of me. Because you defended me. Because Dominic is connected and vindictive, and corporate boards hate controversy. Nathan pressed the elevator button with more force than necessary. Don't worry about it. I've dealt with board concerns before. But Emma was worrying. She was watching Nathan's carefully constructed world develop cracks because he'd chosen to stand up for her. The guilt was a physical weight, pressing down on her chest. They ate lunch at a quiet Italian place in the Loop, barely tasting their food while discussing logistics, where Emma should stay, whether she should take time off from work, what to do if Travis showed up again. Every decision felt fraught with consequence, every plan contingent on variables they couldn't control. I have a house in Lake Forest, Nathan said, stirring his untouched risotto. Gated community, security systems, privacy. You could stay there for a while until we sort this out. That feels like running. It's strategic retreat. There's a difference. Emma shook her head. Travis wins if I hide. He wins if I change my life to accommodate his threats. I'm staying in my apartment, working my job, living my life. If he wants to make a move, let him. We'll deal with it legally. Nathan looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. Pride, maybe, or concern, or something deeper he wasn't ready to voice. You're sure? I'm not sure of anything. But I'm done letting fear make my decisions. That evening, Emma returned to her apartment building to find a package waiting at the concierge desk. No return address, no shipping label, just her name written in black marker. Her hands shook as she opened it upstairs, Nathan on speakerphone listening from his car. Inside the box was a photograph, Emma and Travis from 2 years ago, at a restaurant in Charleston. In the photo, Emma was smiling, Travis's arm around her shoulders possessively. Across the image, someone had scrawled in red marker, "You were happy. We were happy. Come home. He's escalating." Nathan's voice came through tinny and urgent. "Emma, I'm coming over. Don't open the door for anyone else." She sat on her couch, staring at the photograph, remembering the night it was taken. She'd worn a blue dress Travis had bought her. She'd ordered what he'd suggested. She'd laughed at his jokes and touched his arm, and played the role of doting girlfriend, because that's what kept the peace. The smile on her face was practiced, hollow. She'd been disappearing even then, erasing herself one compromise at a time. But Travis remembered it differently. In his mind, they'd been happy because she'd been compliant. He couldn't conceive of a version of love that didn't involve control. Nathan arrived 20 minutes later, his coat dusted with snow, his face grim. He examined the package, photographed everything, called Margaret to add it to the evidence file. Then he sat beside Emma on the couch, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Talk to me," he said quietly. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about how easy it would be to give up, to go back to Charleston, to let Travis think he's won, to disappear into that small, safe, suffocating life." Emma turned to look at him. "And then I'm thinking about how I'd rather die than live like that again. How I'd rather face whatever Travis can do to me than go back to being that hollow version of myself. You won't have to face it alone." "I know. And that terrifies me almost as much as Travis does." Nathan shifted to face her fully. "Why? Because I don't know how to accept help. Because I'm not used to people staying. Because everyone I've ever trusted has eventually decided I'm too much trouble, too damaged, too complicated." The words tumbled out, raw and honest. "And when you figure that out too, when you decide this fight isn't worth it, I don't know if I'll survive it." "Emma." Nathan took her hands, his grip warm and solid. "I'm not going anywhere. Not because you're a charity case or a damsel in distress, but because—" He stopped, seemed to wrestle with something internal, then continued. "Because over the past week, I've come to care about you, more than I probably should, given the circumstances. You're brave and resilient, and kind in ways that people who've been hurt like you've been hurt have no obligation to be. You make me want to be the person you think I am." Emma's breath caught. "Nathan, I'm not asking for anything. I'm not expecting anything. I just need you to understand that this isn't about obligation or nobility. It's about—" He squeezed her hands. "It's about you, about who you are and who you could become if someone would just give you the space and safety to figure it out." She kissed him. It was impulse, driven by emotion and adrenaline, and the desperate need to feel something other than afraid. Nathan froze for half a second, then kissed her back, his hands coming up to frame her face with unexpected gentleness. The kiss deepened, and Emma felt something in her chest crack open, some sealed-off place where she'd stored hope flooding with light. When they finally pulled apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "Emma, His phone rang, shrill and insistent. He closed his eyes, visibly frustrated, but answered it. "Cross." His expression changed, went hard and cold. "When?" A pause. "I'll be right there. What's wrong?" "That was building security for the Apex Tower. Someone broke into my office." "The police are there now." Nathan stood, helping Emma to her feet. "You're coming with me. I'm not leaving you alone tonight." They took Nathan's car, speeding through snowy streets toward downtown. Emma's mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. When they arrived at the Apex Tower, squad cars blocked the entrance, their lights painting the building's facade in alternating blue and red. Detective Sarah Chen met them in the lobby, her expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Cross, your office was accessed approximately 2 hours ago. Security footage shows a man in maintenance coveralls entering with what appears to be a copied keycard. He was inside for 12 minutes. What did he take?" Nathan asked. "That's the odd part. As far as we can tell, nothing. He went through your desk, accessed your computer, unsuccessfully according to your IT team, and left. No theft, no vandalism, just intrusion." Emma felt Nathan tense beside her. "Can I see the footage?" Detective Chen pulled up the video on her tablet. The image was grainy but clear enough. A man in coveralls and a baseball cap, his face angled away from cameras, moving through Nathan's office with purpose. He rifled through desk drawers, tried Nathan's computer, then stood at the window for a long moment before leaving. "Do you recognize him?" Chen asked. Nathan's jaw was tight. "Show Emma." Chen turned the tablet toward Emma. As the figure turned slightly, revealing a partial profile, her stomach dropped. "That's Travis Henderson. You're certain?" "I'm certain. The way he moves, his build, everything, that's him." Detective Chen made notes. "Is there any reason Mr. Henderson would break into your office, Mr. Cross?" "He's stalking Emma," Nathan said flatly. "We filed for a restraining order today. This is retaliation. Or reconnaissance," Emma added quietly. "Travis plans. He gathers information. He's trying to find something he can use against you." Chen looked between them. "I'll need full statements from both of you. And Mr. Cross, I'd recommend a complete security audit. If he got a copied keycard, someone helped him." The next 2 hours were a blur of police questions and security consultations. Emma learned that Nathan's company employed over 200 people at the Apex Tower, any one of whom might have access to keycard duplicating equipment. Finding who'd helped Travis would take time they didn't have. By midnight, they were back at Nathan's penthouse apartment in Gold Coast, a sprawling space with lake views and minimalist decor that somehow felt warm despite its size. Nathan poured them both whiskey, and they sat in his living room watching snow fall over Lake Michigan. "He's not going to stop," Emma said quietly. "Travis doesn't stop until he wins. Then we change the game. Make him play on our terms." Nathan swirled his whiskey. "Margaret can use this break-in to accelerate the restraining order. We'll have it by tomorrow afternoon, and I'm hiring private security for both of us. Armed, trained, experienced. That's expensive. I don't care about the cost. I care about keeping you safe." He looked at her. "Emma, I need you to consider staying here, at least for now. Multiple exits, security system, doorman who actually pays attention. It's defensible in ways your apartment isn't." Emma wanted to argue, to insist on her independence, but she was tired of being brave for the sake of being brave. Sometimes accepting help was its own form of courage. "Okay, but just until the restraining order is in place and Travis backs off. Deal." Nathan showed her to a guest room that was larger than her entire previous apartment, with an ensuite bathroom and a bed that looked like clouds. At the door, he paused. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we fight back." But sleep was elusive. Emma lay in expensive sheets, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the kiss, the break-in, Travis's face on the security footage. Everything was spinning out of control, the careful walls she'd built crumbling under the combined assault of fear and hope, and feelings she couldn't afford to have. In the next room, Nathan sat at his desk, making calls despite the late hour, private investigators, security consultants, lawyers who specialized in stalking cases. He'd faced down mobsters and corporate raiders, had built an empire from nothing, but none of it had prepared him for this particular fear, the fear that he couldn't protect someone who mattered. Because Emma mattered. She'd mattered from the moment he'd seen Dominic Castellano grab her wrist, had continued mattering through every conversation, every smile, every glimpse of the woman she was beneath the armor of survival. He'd told himself he was helping her because it was right, because he could, because of his sister. But that kiss had shattered his careful justifications. He wanted Emma safe not just because she deserved safety, but because he wanted her in his life, wanted to know what she looked like when she laughed without fear, wanted to watch her pursue her librarian dreams and hike the Appalachian Trail, and simply exist without constantly looking over her shoulder. And Travis Henderson was standing in the way of that future. Nathan pulled up the background check his investigators had compiled. Travis came from money, old Charleston wealth, the kind that bought immunity and silence. He'd been accused of assault twice, charges dropped both times. He'd been fired from 2 jobs for inappropriate conduct toward female colleagues. He had a pattern, and Emma was just the latest victim who'd had the audacity to escape. But this time would be different, because Emma had something the others hadn't, someone willing to fight just as dirty as Travis did, someone with resources and connections, and the willingness to burn it all down if necessary. Nathan's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I have information that will end you." Travis, of course, making threats because that's all men like him knew how to do. Nathan typed back, "Try me." The war was officially on, and Nathan Cross had never lost a war that mattered. The restraining order was granted Friday morning in a Cook County courtroom, Judge Patricia Valdez presiding. Travis Henderson was to maintain a distance of 500 feet from Emma Rose Hartley, was forbidden from any direct or indirect contact, and would face immediate arrest for any violation. Margaret Brennan had made the case efficiently and devastatingly, presenting evidence that painted Travis as a dangerous stalker with escalating behavior. Travis wasn't present. He couldn't be served until he was located, but his attorney, a slick corporate lawyer from Charleston, appeared via video conference to object perfunctorily before withdrawing. It was a legal maneuver, creating the appearance of defense without actually defending. Travis didn't think he needed defense. He thought himself untouchable. "He'll violate it," Emma said as they left the courthouse. "The order won't stop him." "I know," Nathan agreed, "but when he does, we'll have legal grounds for arrest. It's a tool, not a solution." They were surrounded now by security, 2 professionals named Marcus and Jenna, former military, who moved with quiet competence. Emma had protested the expense until Nathan had simply said, "Humor me," in a tone that brooked no argument. The next move came faster than expected. Saturday afternoon, Emma's phone rang from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but Nathan, sitting beside her in his apartment, nodded. "Put it on speaker. We're recording." "Hello? Emma." Travis's voice was ice-wrapped in velvet. "Got your little court order. Very dramatic. You always did have a flair for the theatrical. Travis, you're in violation just by calling. I'm calling from a burner phone. Can't trace it. Can't prove it's me. But we both know." He paused. "I'm disappointed, Emma. I came all this way to bring you home. And this is how you thank me? With legal threats and your billionaire attack dog?" Nathan leaned forward. "This is Nathan Cross. You're being recorded, Henderson. Every word you're saying is evidence." Travis laughed. "Nathan Cross, the big hero. Did Emma tell you about us? About how good we were together before she got scared of real intimacy? She told me you're an abusive stalker who can't accept that she left you. Is that the story she told? Let me guess. She painted herself as the victim, me as the monster. Classic Emma. She's very good at playing wounded bird, at making powerful men want to rescue her." His voice turned sharp. "How long until you figure out she's the problem? That she's unstable, manipulative, a liar who'll say anything to get what she wants?" Emma felt the old accusations slam into her, the gaslighting she'd endured for years. But Nathan's hand found hers, anchoring her. "Here's what's going to happen," Nathan said calmly. "You're going to get on a plane back to Charleston. You're going to stay there. You're going to move on with your life and leave Emma alone. If you don't, I will use every resource at my disposal to make your life a living hell. Legal, financial, social, every avenue available. Do you understand? Threats? How original. Let me tell you what's actually going to happen. Travis's voice dripped poison. I'm going to destroy you, Cross. I have friends in Chicago now. Friends with long memories and sharp knives. Dominic Castellano sends his regards, by the way. Turns out he's very interested in the man who humiliated him. Emma's blood went cold. Travis, what did you do? What I had to do. You forced this, Emma. You and your rescuer here. Now you'll both learn what happens when you cross me. The line went dead. Nathan was already dialing, his face grim. We need to move. Now. What? Why? Because Travis just admitted to conspiring with Dominic, which means whatever's coming is bigger than a restraining order. He was throwing clothes into a bag, moving with urgent precision. We're going to Lake Forest. The house is secure. Off the grid enough that they'll need time to find it. Nathan, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm insisting. He cupped her face in his hands. Emma, listen to me. We knew Travis wouldn't stop at legal boundaries. We knew Dominic was a threat. Now they're working together, which makes this exponentially more dangerous. We need space and time to counter-move. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Sir, we have a situation. Building security just flagged 2 men trying to access the penthouse elevator with fake credentials. They're being detained, but there may be others. Nathan's expression went cold and hard. Get the car. Underground garage, north exit. We leave in 3 minutes. The next 15 minutes were a blur of movement. Down service stairs, through concrete corridors, into the waiting BMW with Marcus driving and Jenna riding shotgun, both armed and vigilant. Emma watched Chicago speed past, the city that had been her refuge now feeling hostile and dangerous. Lake Forest was 40 minutes north, a world away from downtown's density. Nathan's house sat behind gates and walls, surrounded by bare trees and snow-covered lawns. It was modern glass and stone, beautiful in a stark way, with views of frozen Lake Michigan through walls of windows. Inside, Nathan immediately went to a room Emma hadn't seen before, a study lined with monitors and computer equipment. He pulled up security camera feeds, checked alerts, made rapid calls to people who answered immediately despite the late hour. Emma sank onto a leather couch, her mind struggling to process how quickly everything had escalated. A week ago, she'd been a waitress living in anonymous obscurity. Now she was in a billionaire's fortress, hiding from her stalker ex-boyfriend who'd allied with a mob boss. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's life. Emma. Nathan sat beside her, his face softer now. I know this is overwhelming, but we're safe here. Marcus and Jenna are ex-Secret Service. This house has security that would make the Pentagon jealous. Nothing's getting through that we don't want getting through. How long can we stay here? How long until Travis and Dominic find us? My investigators are locating Travis as we speak. Once we know where he is, we can predict his movements. As for Dominic, Nathan's jaw tightened. I made an enemy there, and he won't forget. But he's also pragmatic. Direct action against me would bring attention he can't afford. Not with the FBI already watching. Travis said they were working together. Travis says a lot of things. He's a narcissist making threats to maintain a sense of control. The reality is probably much simpler. He hired some local muscle through an intermediary who happened to know Dominic's organization. It's concerning, but not a coordinated conspiracy. Emma wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. What if you're wrong? What if they really are planning something? Nathan was quiet for a moment, then said, Then we'll handle it. Together. But Emma, I need you to trust me. I've spent years learning how men like Dominic and Travis think. They're predictable in their unpredictability. They make big threats and sloppy mistakes. We just have to be smarter and more patient. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She wandered the house, exploring rooms filled with expensive art and minimalist furniture. In the kitchen, she found Nathan making tea, still dressed despite the late hour. Couldn't sleep either? He asked, handing her a cup. Too much adrenaline. Too many thoughts. She sat at the kitchen island. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really leave the FBI? Nathan was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, I was undercover in a crime family in Newark. Deep cover. Meaning I lived as one of them for 3 years. I did things. Legal, approved by my handlers, but morally questionable. I watched crimes happen that I couldn't stop, because stopping them would blow my cover. I became close to people I knew I'd eventually betray. He stared into his tea. When the operation finally concluded, we took down a major racketeering network. 73 arrests, millions in assets seized. By any metric, it was a success. But But one of the men I'd befriended, a guy named Tommy, mid-level enforcer, not particularly bright but genuinely kind to me, hanged himself in lockup 2 days after his arrest. He left a note saying he couldn't believe I'd betrayed him, that he'd thought we were friends. Nathan's voice was flat. I realized I'd become someone capable of making a man believe we were friends while gathering evidence to destroy his life, and that person scared me more than any criminal I'd ever met. Emma reached across, took his hand. You were doing your job. You were trying to stop bad people. I was, and I'd do it again if I had to, but I couldn't keep being that person full-time. The lies and the double life and the moral compromises, they were eating me alive, so I quit. Used my inheritance to buy a struggling hotel in Dorchester, turned it profitable, and discovered I was good at business. Built from there. He looked at her. I tell you this because I want you to understand. I'm not a hero, Emma. I'm someone who's made difficult choices and questionable calls. I'm helping you because I can, and because I want to, but I'm not asking you to see me as something I'm not. I see you as someone brave enough to question himself, someone who learned from past mistakes instead of repeating them, someone who uses his power to protect instead of dominate. She squeezed his hand. You're exactly who I think you are. Nathan pulled her closer, and she let herself lean into him, feeling the solid warmth of his body against hers. They stayed like that for a long time, finding comfort in proximity, while the house settled around them, and Lake Michigan whispered against the shore outside. Sunday morning brought developments. Nathan's investigators located Travis at a luxury hotel in River North, keeping watch to track his movements. Margaret had filed emergency motions to have him arrested for violating the restraining order, and Detective Chen called with news about the break-in at Apex Tower. We've identified your inside man, she said through the speakerphone. Junior IT tech named Brian Fuller. He admitted to duplicating a key card for $5,000, paid in cash by someone matching Henderson's description. Fuller's been arrested, and he's cooperating fully. Can you tie Henderson to the payment? Nathan asked. We're working on it. Fuller described the transaction, the meeting place, everything. We just need to locate Henderson to question him. Chen paused. Mr. Ross, I'm going to be frank with you. Henderson has resources and clearly no respect for legal boundaries. The restraining order will eventually get him arrested, but in the meantime, he's dangerous. Be careful. We're secure, Nathan assured her, and we're ready for whatever he tries next. What Travis tried next came Tuesday morning, in the form of a media blitz. Emma woke to find her face on Chicago news sites and tabloid blogs, with headlines screaming variations of Billionaire's mystery woman and domestic dispute turns public. Travis had given interviews, painting himself as a concerned boyfriend trying to rescue Emma from a predatory older man. He'd provided photos, text messages taken out of context, statements from Charleston friends claiming Emma was unstable. He's trying to destroy your credibility before you can testify, Margaret explained over video conference. It's a classic abuser tactic. Control the narrative. Make you look unreliable. Emma felt sick reading the articles, seeing her life reduced to tabloid fodder. But Nathan was already moving, making calls, activating his own media contacts. By noon, counter articles appeared, with Emma's attorney issuing statements about domestic violence and stalking, with experts weighing in on coercive control and victim blaming. Let him play in the media, Nathan said grimly. Every interview he gives is evidence. Every lie he tells can be disproven. He's digging his own grave. Wednesday brought the break they needed. Travis, emboldened by media attention and convinced of his own invincibility, showed up at the Meridian Hotel restaurant where Emma had worked. He walked in demanding to see her, making a scene, shouting about his rights as her boyfriend. Hotel security called the police. Detective Chen herself made the arrest. Nathan and Emma watched it happen via security footage that Chen shared. Travis in handcuffs, still shouting, still threatening, being led out to a squad car while guests recorded on their phones. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Emma felt only exhaustion. It's over, Nathan said quietly. He violated the restraining order publicly, with dozens of witnesses. He'll be charged, prosecuted, and hopefully convicted. You're safe now. But the call that came Thursday proved that safety was still elusive. Dominic Castellano's attorney reached out, requesting a meeting. Nathan, suspicious but curious, agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop in the Loop, daytime, public, with Marcus standing by. Dominic arrived alone, looking older and more tired than Emma remembered. He sat across from Nathan, ordered an espresso, and got straight to the point. The Travis Henderson situation has brought unwanted attention to my operations. Federal prosecutors are asking questions, connecting dots I'd rather keep unconnected. He stirred his espresso. I want to propose a truce, Cross. I stay out of your business. You stay out of mine. What happened at Bellissimo? We forget it. Clean slate. What about Emma? Nathan asked coldly. Do you forget her too? I never should have touched her in the first place. I was drunk, stupid, playing to my crew. It was wrong. Dominic actually looked contrite. I'm offering an apology and a promise to leave her alone. In exchange, you stop feeding information to the FBI about my operations. Nathan leaned back. I haven't been feeding information to the FBI. But you could. You have contacts, knowledge, credibility. They'd listen if you spoke. Dominic met his eyes. I'm not a stupid man, Cross. I know I'm being investigated. I know my days are numbered unless I'm very careful. What I don't need is you accelerating that timeline out of personal vendetta. Emma deserves more than words. She deserves assurance. Then she has it. On my daughter's life, I will never approach her, speak to her, or threaten her in any way. This vendetta, if it ever was one, is over. Dominic stood, dropped cash on the table for his untouched coffee. We're not friends, Cross. We'll never be friends. But we don't have to be enemies. Think about it. After he left, Nathan sat in silence, processing the offer. Emma, listening via phone from Lake Forest, finally spoke. Do you believe him? I believe he's pragmatic enough to mean it right now. Whether that holds long-term? Nathan shrugged. We'll see. But between Travis being arrested and Dominic backing off, the immediate threats are neutralized. Emma felt something release in her chest, a tension she'd been holding for so long it had become part of her. So what happens now? Now? Nathan's voice was warm. Now you come back to the city. You get back to your life. You enroll in library science classes for spring semester. You hike in the summer and read mystery novels and exist without looking over your shoulder. He paused. And if you're willing, you let me take you to dinner. Somewhere nice, with good wine and terrible hot chocolate nearby for after. Emma smiled, tears pricking her eyes. I'd like that. She returned to Chicago the next day, to her apartment that somehow felt different now, less like a hiding place and more like a home. She went back to work at the Meridian, where her coworkers welcomed her with warmth and curiosity. She met Nathan's sister, Kara, who hugged her fiercely and whispered, "Thank you for letting my brother remember how to care about something other than work." And slowly, carefully, Emma began to build the life she'd dreamed of in those dark Charleston days. She enrolled at Dominican University's library science program. She adopted a cat from a shelter, a gray tabby she named Scout. She made friends with her neighbors, joined a book club, planted herbs on her windowsill. Travis was prosecuted for stalking and violated the restraining order multiple times from jail through proxies, adding to his charges. He was eventually sentenced to 2 years, with mandatory counseling upon release. Emma didn't attend the sentencing. She'd already moved on. 3 months after that night at Bellissimo, Emma and Nathan had their official first date, dinner at a quiet French restaurant, followed by hot chocolate at the midnight roaster. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing, about past and future, about the strange circumstances that had brought them together. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said as they walked along the Chicago River, spring finally melting the last of the winter snow. "That night at Bellissimo, when I saw Dominic grab you, it wasn't random chance that I intervened. I'd been watching you for weeks." Emma stopped walking. "Watching me? Not like Travis watched you. I noticed you. How kind you were to everyone. How you moved through that restaurant like you were trying to be invisible. You intrigued me." He took her hands. "I was trying to work up the courage to actually talk to you beyond ordering dinner. Then Dominic happened, and everything accelerated. But I want you to know, this started before the danger, before the drama. It started with me noticing a woman who deserved better than she was getting." Emma stood on her toes, kissed him softly. "I noticed you too. Every Friday the man who ate alone and left generous tips and sometimes looked so lonely it broke my heart. We're quite the pair. We are." She pulled him closer. "But I think that's okay. Maybe broken people fit together better because we know where all the sharp edges are." They stood there as the sun set over Chicago, 2 people who'd found each other in crisis and chosen to stay through calm. The city moved around them, cars honking, people laughing, the L train rumbling past on elevated tracks, and Emma felt, for the first time in years, like she belonged. 6 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Emma walked into the Newberry Library for her first day as a junior librarian. Nathan sent flowers, not roses but wildflowers, the kind that grew along hiking trails. The card read simply, "For all the new beginnings." Emma placed them on her desk, in a library that smelled of old books and possibility, and smiled. She'd run from Charleston scared and alone. She'd arrived in Chicago broken and hiding, but she'd found something she hadn't known to look for, someone who saw her completely and chose to stay. That evening, Nathan picked her up from work, and they walked through Lincoln Park, watching leaves turn gold and red. They didn't talk much, comfortable in silence, hands clasped as they moved through the beautiful ordinary of a life rebuilt from ruins. Later, much later, when people asked how they met, Nathan would smile and say, "She served me the best ribeye in Chicago." And Emma would add, "And he taught me that power used rightly can protect instead of harm." But what they never said, what remained theirs alone, was the truth, that they'd found each other in darkness and chosen to walk toward light together, that they'd faced bullies and stalkers and their own broken pieces and come through not unscathed, but stronger for the scars. The snow would fall again. Winter would return to Chicago, blanketing the city in white. But Emma Rose Hartley would face it without fear, with Nathan Cross beside her and a future spreading out before them like an open book, every page waiting to be written. In the end, that was the victory. Not the defeat of villains or the resolution of danger, but the simple, radical act of choosing to live fully, openly, without apology, of reclaiming her name, her dreams, herself. Emma was no longer running. She was standing still, rooted and blooming, exactly where she chose to be. And that made all the difference. Thank you for following Emma and Nathan's story. If you enjoyed this journey, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on how Emma found her courage. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more compelling narratives. Until next time, remember that it's never too late to reclaim your life and write your own happy ending.